بسم الله الحمد لله الذي جعل الإسلام دينا من صفوة بهيته وبعث به المرسلين الذين اختارها من خليقته وجعلنا قوامين على شريعته وعلى ملته ذابين عن حريمه عاملين بسنته أحمده حق حمده وأسأله التوفيق لرشده وأرغب إليه في المزيد من فضله وصلى الله على خاتم رسله نبينا محمد أفضل النبيين وخيرة الله من الخلق أجمعين وعلى صحابته الأخيار المنتخبين وعلى التابعين بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. Respected brothers and sisters, the next two Jum'ahs that I have, inshallah we anticipate the arrival of a new Imam. I wanted to address issues that pertain to the rectification of the community. And those things, they have not started recently, they have been with us for a long time. And we are not the only ones to share this, but many communities have been plagued with issues related to this. So the topic and the focus is unity, but today we will talk about positive characteristics that can lead to unity, and then next week, inshallah, we will talk about some of the destructive qualities that lead to disunity. And they cannot be covered totally in one Jum'ah or two, but the goal is to just create awareness so we make the right decision. So first of all, disunity, Allah Azza wa Jalla, He spoke of it in His book. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, وَلَوْ شَاءَ رَبُّكَ لَجَعَلَ النَّاسَ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً وَلَا يَزَالُونَ مُخْتَلِفِينَ إِلَّا مَنْ رَحِمَ رَبُّكَ. Allah, He said, if Allah wanted, is Allah telling Muhammad if your Lord wanted, that He would make all of humanity, as Imam Ibn Jarir al-Tabari rahimahullah, he says in his tafsir, وَلَوْ شَاءَ رَبُّكَ يَا مُحَمَّدُ, if your Lord wanted, O Muhammad, لَجَعَلَ النَّاسُ كُلَّهَا جَمَاعَةً وَاحِدًا, He would make all of humanity in one group, not the Muslims. All of humanity, if Allah wanted, He would make them one group. عَلَى مِلَّةٍ وَاحِدًا, on one path, عَلَى دِينٍ وَاحِدٍ, on one religion. And then he mentions many of the aqwal and the athar of the Salaf as to what they interpreted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's statement of saying, وَلَا يَزَالُونَ مُخْتَلِفِينَ, but they will continue not but to be disunited or different. So many of them, the majority of them, were saying that they would not differ in their deen. There would be no other religions except Islam. So some of them interpreted those that differ as the Jews, the Christians, the Magians, all these other groups. Some of them interpreted as they would be Ahlul Batil. There would be people on falsehood who would divert from the truth. But the lesson here is, Allah, He said, إِلَّا مَنْ رَحِمَ رَبُّهُ, that except those whom Allah has mercy on, they will not differ. So unity is a mercy from Allah. As the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Al-Ijtima'u Rahmah wal-Furqatu Adab, that unity is a mercy and disunity and differing is a punishment from Allah. And to show us how severe it is, that the Prophet ﷺ is reported from the hadith of Jabir ibn Sahih Muslim, that Jabir ibn he said, I heard the Prophet ﷺ saying that إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ آيَسَ أَنْ يَعْبُدَهُ الْمُصَلُّونَ فِي جَزِيرَةِ الْعَرَبِ. That shaitan, he gave up, he lost hope that those who pray salah would return to worshipping idols in the Arabian Peninsula. Shaitan gave up on that. That his first goal actually is not to get a person to do a sin, but a shirk. If he cannot make them do shirk, then he will try to make them do an innovation, if they're a believer in Tawheed. If they won't do an innovation, he will try to get them in the kaba'ir, the major sins. If he does not get them to do the major sin, he will try the minor sin. If they cannot do a minor sin, he will try to get them to pick the lesser of two goods. So shaitan has an agenda, but he gave up that anyone will worship him in the Arabian Peninsula, meaning the worship of idols. But the lesson here about the topic, the Prophet said, وَلَكِنَّ التَّحْرِيشَ فِي مَا بَيْنَهُ. وَلَكِنَّ التَّحْرِيشَ فِي مَا بَيْنَهُ. But shaitan, his focus now, if he cannot change people from Tawheed in the Arabian Peninsula, is to get them to be disunited. And the explanation they mentioned is that إن الشيطان يئس أن يعود أهل الجزيرة إلى عبادة الأصنام. Shaitan, he lost hope that the people of the Arabian Peninsula would return to idol worship. كما كانوا عليه قبل فتح مكة, just as they were before the conquest of Mecca. ولكنه رضي واكتفى بالتحريش بينهم. But he was content and pleased with disunity between them. وذلك بالسعي في زروع الخصومات. Shaitan is the one that instigates disagreements and arguments. والشحناء and rancor. والحروب and wars. والفتن ونحوها and tribulation. So this is the agenda of Shaitan. But now the focus of the rest of the time we have today is to understand that in Furu' al-Din, most of our disagreements are either in Furu' al-Din, in the branches of the religion, not in the usul. None of us have a different creed here. Nobody is calling to anything other than what the Prophet ﷺ, his Sahaba, and the Salaf believe. So one is disagreements in Furu' al-Din. In America, we are a diverse Muslim community. There are people from all over the world. So it is from the history of Islam that there were differences of opinions and differences that did not disunite the Ummah. As we will see in the life of the Salaf and the righteous scholars of the Mujtahidun, that they had differences, but this did not disunite them. That's today's khutbah. Inshallah, next week we'll deal with issues, which is the bulk of masajid in America, is not really an issue that has to do with the Sharia. It is really personal, disagreements and personal tension between individuals that have differences not based off of the deen but because of personalities. So there isn't much time, but the reading I'm doing from is a book by a contemporary scholar, Shaykh Muhammad al-Awwama, Hafidhahullah. He's a Syrian scholar who used to be in Medina Munawwara. Now I have heard he's moved to Turkey. But he's wrote a book called الاختلاف في علم الدين, or الاختلاف في العلم ومسائل الدين. That differences in knowledge and the rulings of the religion, or the knowledge of the religion and its rulings. So first off, we have to define what is اختلاف, what is the difference. So he quotes one of the great books on the vocabulary of the Quran by Raghib al-Asfahani rahimahullah, al-Mufradati Alfaz al-Quran. He says that ikhtilaf is that every person takes a different path, or that is different from the other, that does not lead to quarreling or schisms. So because someone takes a different opinion, it does not lead to actual confrontation and conflict. And then he says, when the ikhtilaf in the people leads to quarreling and conflict, then this is something that is blameworthy, and that because it leads to disputes and arguments. And that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke of, negative disagreement. فَاخْتَلَفَ الْأَحْزَابُ مِنْ بَيْنِهِمْ. Allah mentions the story of Isa alayhi salam, that after Isa alayhi salam taught pure Tawheed and Islam, that groups differed and branched off. فَوَيْلٌ لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ مَشْهَدِ يَوْمٍ عَظِيمٍ. Woe to those who disbelieve of witnessing a great day on the Day of Judgment. Allah will decide between truth and falsehood. So this is ikhtilaf. But khilaf is a different word, is that when people pick two different things that are opposites. So for example, black and white are different and they are also opposites. But red and green, although they are different, they are not opposites. So ikhtilaf does not mean because two opinions are taken, or different opinions are taken, they are opposite or that they contradict each other. Then the Imam, Hafidhahullah, he mentions that what are some of the causes of this disagreement when it comes to the furu' of the deen. So first off, we have to understand that there are some things in the deen that they are mujma' alayh, or they are qat'an. There is no room for disagreement on that. No imam can come and say that, instead of 5 salah, we should have 4. This is something there is no room for disagreement. But there are things in the deen where there is a need for ijtihad, where a scholar that works hard and does his best to look at the ayat and the hadith of revelation and then to derive a ruling on an issue that was not clearly elucidated by them. So one thing is to understand ra'i, that ra'i, or having an opinion, is something that Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah, he said, as long as there is room for ra'i, there is room for people to disagree. Because people are different naturally, they do not understand the same thing the same way. And then he mentions different definitions by some of the previous scholars, and he picked one that was encompassing by his Shaykh, the late Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda rahimahullah, where he said that ra'i is هو ظن الصواب الحكم ورجحانه فيما لم ينص عليه. That a ra'i or individual opinion is to think in a ruling to be correct or more dominant for something that was not clearly explained in the Quran or the Sunnah. So then he explains, rahimahullah, hafidhahullah, excuse me, Shaykh Muhammad Awama, that there are different categories of difference in the religion. So there is one that is a difference in the religion in totality. There is a difference between Islam and Christianity and Judaism and Hinduism. That's totally, not open for debate. Then you have an ikhtilaf in the aqeedah of the religion. So there is something that is clearly understood by the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ, and they believed, but groups later came and they brought deviant interpretations, or they, distorted the text and brought a belief that was not believed by the earlier generations of this ummah. And then the last, as I mentioned before, is ikhtilaf fi furu'ati, or furu' fiqh, to have a difference in the branches of fiqh. That the differences in the branches of fiqh is not a difference that disunites our ummah. Then he mentions, hafidhahullah, what are the causes of difference. So one of them is the nature of the minds of human beings. That the minds of human beings see things differently. طبيعة عقول المكلفين ونفوسهم. That no two people think exactly the same way on all things. Then he mentions that the nature of the nusus themselves, that one of the biggest branches of usul al-fiqh is dalalatul alfaz. The Arabic language is a language like no other. That one word can have so many different meanings, and one phrase can have different meanings. So the nature of the text itself is the reason that there can be a difference. And then is طبيعة اللغة العربية التي جاء بها هذه النصوص, the nature of the Arabic language. So then the Imam, may Allah preserve him, he mentions the encounter he had with the student more than 20 years before he wrote the book. He wrote the book about 25 years ago. And he said one person came to him and he said, why are the Muslims different? Why do they have so many different madhahib? They should be on one method. So he asked him a question. He said, look, that Allah in His pre-eternal knowledge, did He not know that when He revealed the ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah, that وَلِلْمُطَلَّقَاتِ يَتَرَبَّصْنَ بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ ثَلَاثَةَ قُرُوءٍ. A woman who is divorced, a revocable divorce by her husband, she is to wait 3 quru. And in Arabic language, that same word, it can mean a period of menstruation, or it can mean a period of purity. Allah does not make mistakes. لا يضل ربي ولا ينسى. But Allah revealed that word in the Quran as it is. And then he explained to him, he said, didn't Allah know in His pre-eternal knowledge that companions would come, such as Zayd ibn Thabit and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud saw this word to mean a period of purity, and Zayd ibn Thabit saw it to be a period of hayd, of menstruation. So he said Allah in His pre-eternal knowledge revealed this, knowing that it will lead to differences of opinion, but that is not something negative. And then he, hafidhahullah, he mentioned an example Or he mentions a story that explains to us that not to see all differences in the religion as something that is disunity. It's a long story, it will take much of my time, but I think it's very beneficial. So he mentions a dialogue that happened in the Khilafah Abbasiyya of Ma'mun al-Rashid, that a person apostated in the time of Ma'mun al-Rashid. He was a Muslim and he left Islam. So Ma'mun, as a Khalifa, imagine, he studied with the scholars of Mu'tazila, although his aqidah was not sound. He was the one that pushed the fitna of Khalq al-Quran. He was the first Khalifa of 3 Khalifas of Bani Abbas to push this incorrect belief. But the Mu'tazila, they had strengths in certain ulum, like usul al-fiqh or ilm al-kalam. They were one of the torchbearers in that field. So he sent a letter to this person who had apostated. And he said that, what is the reason that has made you leave Islam and enter into Christianity? So that apostate, he wrote back, he said, because there is so much disunity in Islam. So he said, you have to understand that there are 2 different kinds of difference in the religion. He said, like for example, there is a difference that both are established, like how the adhan is called. That the difference in the number of how many times you repeat takbir or tahleel or tashahhud, that there are thabit in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Or in the iqamah, to make it 2 or to make it 1, or how the takbir of salatul janazah is, or how the finger is lifted in tashahhud, or how salatul eid is prayed, or salatul takbiratul tashriq. Some say 3, some say 2. And the different modes of qira'ah. We have different modes of qira'ah that the Prophet taught his Sahaba anhum with different wording that was revealed by Allah to Jibreel to the Prophet. And how the fatwa is given. So he says, وَهَذَا لَيْسَ بِإِخْتِلَافٍ. This is not ikhtilaf. That, as I wish I had more time to say, but one of the students of Imam Ahmad was going to write a book, and he said, I named it Kitab al-Ikhtilaf, the book of differences. He said, don't call it Kitab al-Ikhtilaf, call it Kitab al-Sa'a. Call it the book of expansiveness. Our religion is an expansive religion. Doesn't mean people make their own opinion and try to make it expansive, but there's room for differences. And then he explains the other difference. He says that اختلافنا في تأويل الآية من كتابنا. Another difference is how an ayah is interpreted from our book. That one ayah can be interpreted different ways by scholars, not by common people. And he says the same way you have become a Christian that find in the Bible or in the Torah that a verse that all the people of that religion interpreted one way. So after he explained this to him, that man, he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, wa ashhadu annaka Khalifa, and I bear witness that you are the Khalifa of the Muslims. So this is the history of differences of opinion. But inshallah, if I can conclude with one of the ahadith that happened in the time of Aisha radiallahu anha, that one of the tabi'un came and asked the question that he asked Aisha radiallahu anha after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, أرأيت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يغتسل من الجنابة في أول الليل أو في آخر. That in the Sunnah of Imam Dawud, this hadith comes that she asked, did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if he had either relations with his wife and he was in major impurity, or maybe he had relations with his wife, would he take his ghusl, his ritual bath, in the beginning of the night or the later part? So she said, ربما اغتسل في أول الليل وَرُبَّمَا اغْتَسَلَ فِي آخِرِ. Sometimes he took a bath in the beginning of the night, sometimes in the end. قُلْتُ Allahu Akbar. So that the tabi'i, whose name was Hudayb ibn al-Harith. So he said, Allahu Akbar, Alhamdulillah alladhi ja'ala fi amri sa'a. All praises to Allah, glory be to Him, who has made this religion expansive. And then he asked another question. He said, ثم سألها عن وتره صلى الله عليه وسلم. He asked about the witr of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. وعن جهله بالقرآن. Did the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم pray witr? in the beginning of the night or the end of the night? As another narration clearly says this word. Or did he read his Quran recitation in a loud voice or a quiet voice? So she said, رُبَّمَا وَرُبَّمَا. Sometimes he did it quiet, sometimes he did it in the beginning of the night, sometimes he did it loud, sometimes in the end of the night. So he said, Allahu Akbar, Alhamdulillah alladhi ja'ala fil amri sa'a. All praises to Allah who has made this religion expansive. And then in another narration of the same hadith, he asked a different question, but because for the sake of time I'll conclude that even the Imams themselves, those that were the mujtahidun of a madhab, Imam Malik rahimahullah was asked by the Khalifa, the Ma'mun al-Rashid I believe, that can I ask you permission, I will make you a copy of Muwatta, like the staple fiqh book in all of the lands of the Muslims. The way Uthman radiallahu anhu made one copy of the Mus'haf in its rasam, in its script, an official state copy for all of the lands of the Muslims, so they do not read the Quran incorrectly. I will make your Muwatta like that. So Imam Malik rahimahullah, he said no, because every land has a scholar there who is doing ijtihad. And this may lead people to rejecting the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or in others he said, if the Sahaba radiallahu anhum differed, then who are we not to differ? Umar ibn Abdul Aziz rahimahullah, he was a scholar and a Khalifa of the Bani Umayyah. And he was saying that I would not want red camels, like a fine amount of wealth, then not to have the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ differ in the Masail of fiqh. And then in the end, Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah, his student, he had a debate with his teacher about a certain ruling. And then they separated. So Imam al-Shafi'i, he told his student, Ya Aba Musa, ألا يستقيم أن نكون إخوانا وإن لم نتفق في مسألة. He grabbed the hand of his student to show that he still has no dislike or hatred to his student. But he said that, oh my student, that shouldn't it be that we be brothers, that our brotherhood continues, even if we don't agree on one rule. Majority of the things in deen we agree on, but we focus on what we disagree on. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us. Whatever was said was right is from Allah alone, and whatever I said wrong is from me and shaitan, and Allah and His Messenger are free from it. Inshallah, it's time for announcements.